Last year, I made a list of games that I played that year. This year, I'm doing the same thing. A couple rules. First of all, the game didn't have to come out in 2022. I just have to have played it. Also, I didn't have to reach the credits in the game. I just have to have played it at some point. And it had to be my first time playing it this year, except for one exception, which I'll get into later. Next, a few exclusions for the list. First up, Celeste. Celeste is a very personal game to me, and I don't know how to rate it without being biased. I love the message it tells, but it's not that high up gameplay-wise. Second, Rivals of Aether won't be included, as my enjoyment comes from its competitive modes and its modding community, rather than the base game itself. Okay, ready? Here we go. If you know me, you know I'm a sucker for the Warriors games. Just running around the map and fighting a whole bunch of dudes is really fun. I really enjoyed Persona 5 Strikers last year, and while Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes isn't as good, I still thoroughly enjoyed the game. While the gameplay is good, the team has gotten better with the Warriors format with each game, although I personally prefer Persona 5 Strikers gameplay. The main draw of this game is how it expands upon its characters. Some of my favorites, including Edelgard and Dimitri, get well thought out new arcs. The game really paints Edelgard in a more of a positive light than the original, and Scarlet Blaze does the justice for her that Crimson Flower never did. The new characters are amazing too. I really enjoyed Monica in particular, because I can't believe the game unburied their lesbian. But most of all, just seeing a new twist on these familiar characters with new interactions and new sides of them was fun to see, even if playing all 3 routes in a row became a bit of a slog, hence why the game is so low on the list. Game Freak! How about them, huh? It's no secret they've been on a downward spiral since Generation 5, what with being forced to pump out a new game every year, leading to more and more rushed games. And while the performance issues and abundance of glitches in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet clearly show that the games were rushed, guess what? It's my silly little broken game, and I liked it the more I played it. The new spin on the Pokemon formula is fun and entertaining. While there are some issues with the fact that the levels don't scale, as well as the aforementioned performance issues, I still think the game is a good step forward for the franchise. I have other issues, like the character customization sucks compared to every 3D Pokemon game, but there are a bunch of cool new Pokemon, and it was fun to see them out in the wild together. All in all, the formula needs a lot of refining, but I enjoyed my time and I liked all the new Pokemon. Also, there's an actual Khepri Pokemon now. Cool! Another game that I really enjoyed playing was Splatoon 3. While Rivals of Aether and Splatoon are very similar in the sense they're both focused on competitive, I began playing Splatoon 3 this year, so I can count it. While I go more into depth regarding it in my review, I think the game's good. I enjoyed my time with it, especially in the story mode, and I keep going back for events like Splatfest. The music can get really good at times, and other times it has Talking Ben. I enjoyed all the customization options that the game had, which is one of my favorite parts of Splatoon. The most fun I got out of it, however, was playing with friends, as I got to enjoy time with my friends, and it made up for interesting duo commentary while I played it on stream. All in all, a fun competitive game to play with friends. My main issue with this game is the price point, because while the game does add a lot of things, I don't think what it adds is worth a whole $60. That might just be my opinion, however, but the price point does drag down how I view the game overall, so I'd put it at around 8th on the list. The open world game genre has kind of gone into a renaissance with the release of Breath of the Wild, with all sorts of Nintendo related franchises making the jump to open world. I already touched on it a bit with Pokemon Violet, but the Breath of the Wild influences are felt in Sonic Frontiers as well. Again, I go way more into it into my review, but I didn't expect this game to be good. Considering Sonic Team's track record, I thought it was a pretty safe bet to guess that this game was going to be bad. However, it surprised me in how good it was. The only real problem is the physics and momentum. If they could fix that, they could make the best Sonic game. However, as it is now, it's still very good. It's fun to run around, explore, and do challenges as Sonic. Furthermore, this is the coolest Sonic has been in a while, with the supersonic moments, like the most badass shit I've seen in any Sonic game since Unleashed. It's almost like a power trip in those segments. I love it. Back on the topic of Game Freak, their struggle is really that they're putting out too many games in a short amount of time. I mean, 2 basically open world games in 1 year? Come on. Alright, I guess Pokemon Legends Arceus isn't exactly open world, but I enjoyed it that much for it. This is one of the only Pokemon games that I completed the Pokédex for, because it's required to fight Arceus. So, the game does a good job incentivizing doing its admittedly annoying side quests such as the Spiritomb Wisps. The best part of this game is the capture mechanic, where you can just throw Pokeballs at a Pokemon instead of having to battle to catch it. It's something I wish they brought back for Scarlet and Violet, because it's legitimately a lot of fun to run around hucking balls. There's also more of an incentive to catch multiples of the same Pokemon, because in the main series, I'd only catch one of each. But in this game, you can fill out your Pokedex by catching multiples of the same Pokemon. Another thing this game does well is not following the standard Pokemon plot formula. Instead, you get isekai'd into Sinnoh's Pass by Arceus, and your job is to catch every Pokemon and quell the nobles. Once again, the music is on point. There are some amazing remixes in the soundtrack, and I love the old school Japan vibe some of the music went for. And then there's in a year where Pokemon made 2 great changes in their formula, this is the formula I prefer more for Pokemon. While it lacks a few basic features such as online battles, with some work, I think this could be the formula Pokemon moves forward with. Or at the very least, I hope Legends isn't a one and done deal. Holy shit! It's that quirky Undertale-inspired RPG about depression! If you know me, you know that Undertale is one of my favorite games of all time. I really enjoy its mechanics, story, and characters. However, it's common knowledge that a lot of things in Undertale are inspired by Earthbound, a game I literally never played. However, I was able to find time to stream it when it came out on Nintendo Switch Online, and I enjoyed it a lot. While none of the characters or moments really beat Undertale's best, I can see where the inspiration came from. I thoroughly enjoyed the moments. The easiest best part of the game is the humor. While I'm not a huge fan of the gross shit, aside from that, this game was extremely funny. I liked a lot of the wacky moments. It got a lot of chuckles at me. The whole inputting the player name, while it didn't get to me as I had played games that did this before, was still interesting to witness. While the game could be a bit grindy at points, and its age really shows, I still enjoyed how this game was the backbone for one of my favorite games of all time. That being said, it still stands up on its own, as it is enjoyable enough to be one of my favorite games I played this year. There's plenty of games that exist only in Japan but never make their way over to America, and that really sucks because a lot of these games are works of art and inspire future games. Like Earthbound, I played Live A Live when it was remade for Switch because of Undertale. It was the game with the funny Megalovania song in it. I didn't expect to get that much more out of it than that. However, I ended up enjoying the game a lot. The visuals are fucking stunning, to the point where I think more games need to be HD 2D. For example, a Pokemon Black and White remake in HD 2D would be the only way I would accept a Black and White remake. Because of it using pixel art, I think Live A Live is one of my favorite games on the Switch. The reorchestrated music is fucking incredible. Of course you have the funny Sans Undertale song, but I was surprised, not having heard the other songs on the soundtrack, how good they were. The game's incredibly funny and humorous, both varied in their humors while also telling a story of love in many ways, mixing in its time travel element. Each story can be contained as its own self-contained thing, but they all contribute to the greater plot, which all wraps up in the end with a brand new boss fight that gives justice and redemption to one of the characters who, to my understanding, didn't receive it in the original version for the SNES. I really enjoyed how each story would have various gameplay. Like, for example, in the cowboy story, you're gathering materials and setting traps within a time limit before bandits come and raid the town. In the ninja story, you can either sneak past the guards or kill everyone, and the ending changes slightly depending on your actions. In the outer space story, you're a robot trying to find one of the crew members that are sabotaging the ship's systems. All in all, I really enjoyed Live Alive. Or is it Live Alive? Or Live Alive? Who knows? This year, I finally got the balls to revisit a game I had quit because it scared the piss out of me a few years ago. I can say that it's one of my favorite games I played this year. Death games are a form of media I'm interested in. I mean, hell, I'm a Danganronpa fan. Okay, I'm not a Danganronpa fan, but I am a fan of Danganronpa. You know what I'm saying. Don't lump me in with those people. While I do prefer the zanier cast and formula of Danganronpa, the more down-to-earth and serious nature of the Your Turn to Die cast does something that the Danganronpa games fail to do: make each death matter. While I didn't grow as attached to the characters as I did with the Danganronpa cast, Your Turn to Die lingers on each death, and each death affects the player character along with the others in a palpable way, especially in the case of Joe. Each death feels more compelling and has a lasting impact on the plot, instead of the characters just going back to free time. This makes the death game actually feel like a death game to the player, making the emotional moments hit harder. While I prefer the Danganronpa formula personally, Your Turn to Die objectively handles its characters' deaths better than Danganronpa. The characters are interesting, the plot and the way murders are carried out are as well, and the fact that there's branching paths helps too. Also, there's a canonical autistic character in the game, fucking Bass! People like to complain about the Switch's power, especially when it comes to games like Pokemon. However, this is just straight up wrong. The Switch is able to produce large, open-world games with many things to do that look good. Case in point, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. It falls into another one of my favorite looking games on the Switch. It's a beautiful place, both to look at and to explore. There's plenty of things to do in the world as per Xenoblade usual, and while I tended to go for the main quests, if you're the type of player who likes doing all the side quests, ways to track that is easier than ever with a quest line showing the exact path you need to go, which is fixed from Xenoblade 2. Actually, this game fixes a lot from Xenoblade 2, from fixing up the annoying blade and element orb system, replacing it with the Ouroboros system, which makes a lot more sense in my opinion. The character designs are cleaner and not, well, dripless. Wherever you go in the world, there's always something to do, be it a side quest, a way to unlock a new class, or a rare enemy. Of course, the music also slaps. Some of my favorite tracks in the series are in this game. The plot ties the first two games together without relying too heavily on fan service by showing previous characters. It builds on the themes of future that both previous games touched on, with this game's theme being the need to move on into the future instead of dwelling in the past and present. The game's characters are all very interesting and funny. Uni is honestly the funniest character in any of the trilogy. Mio is honestly one of my favorite characters in the series, and her relationship with Noah is meaningful and reasonable. Of course, the character has many emotional moments. The one at the end of Chapter 5 broke me. You know exactly what I'm talking about. When a game is able to make me cry multiple times, it's a good game in my book. Kotaro Uchikoshi, you rat bastard, you've done it again. My favorite game of 2022 is a fucking visual novel. AI The Omnium Files Nirvana Initiative is an amazing sequel while also being a standalone game. While the game tells its own complete story and is amazing on its own, it also has plenty of fan service to the previous game, most in the form of Date. The puzzle section has vastly been improved and are even more fun to explore than before. The story is fucking amazing, the mystery makes sense, and I really enjoyed how the game covers up the big twist of the timeline being wrong. When Uchikoshi games have been notoriously using the flowchart, having it intentionally be wrong in an Uchikoshi game hit that much harder, because in its past work you could always trust the flowchart. It builds an interesting mystery both for the characters and the player. The game is oozing with comedy, and around every corner, in every bit of flavor text and character interaction, there's something funny to find. That being said, the game knows when to be serious, and there are plenty of emotional moments. The game is pretty action-packed too, and the final fight was really fun and tense to watch. And of course, the game ends with a dance scene, with the song somehow topping Invincible Rainbow Arrow from the original game. The rest of the soundtrack is about on par with the original game, and the Somniums are more interesting and varied than the original too. The characters are incredible, both old and new, both in terms of the comedy they bring and their actual characterization. The game does a lot for Mizuki's character, and her and Aiba were both fun to watch, but I also felt for them at several points throughout the game. Ryuki and Tama's dynamic are also fucking incredible. Ryuki's such a cool character, I love learning about him, as well as the comedy that the two bring together and their character dynamics. The old characters are great. Date, Iris, and Moma are always a treat to see what they're up to, but the game doesn't overuse them to give them time for the new characters. While I didn't like the new characters as much as the old cast, Shoma and Komeji's arc was wholesome as shit. While I didn't like Rian at first, him and Kizuna eventually won me over. Mame took a fucking background character used for an X-ray joke in the original game and gave her a fleshed out backstory with trauma and a whole personality. And finally,
the boundary that divides the real and unreal is ambiguous. It's all like a butterfly dream. Perhaps you are that butterfly, fluttering as the wind carries you through the air.
Okay, we need to talk about the Ryuki Diverge ending, because the more I think about it, the more I like it. Let me give you a rundown of the entire premise of this. Over the main game, the main villain, as well as this character, Tokiko, are trying to expose that the entire world is a simulation and reach a state known as moksha. In playing as the heroes, they are naturally fighting against the notion that their world is a simulation, and so are you, the player. At the end of the game, the heroes win, and the villain's plan is stopped, and everyone dances, yay, hooray. But before that, a hologram of Tokiko tells you a number. Now, the thing about this number is that it is generated at the start of a playthrough. No two numbers will be alike. That way, there's no way to cheat this, and there's no way to see the scene until after you beat the game. Earlier in the game, Tokiko asks you, the player, or as she refers to it, the Freyer, to tell her the number. When you do, the world collapses, as Ryuki isn't supposed to know this number, as it was only learned in the future. This creates a logical paradox that breaks the game and allows Tokiko to reach moksha. The moment this happens is terrifying, but not in a jump scare way or in a gore way, but just in an unnerving way. Everything breaks. You can clip out of the room, and you find Tokiko in a gray void. But more importantly, did you see what Tokiko did? She won. She used the player's curiosity and carefully laid a trap when they thought they were safe. She says everything, even the heroes stopping the terrorist plan, happened to create this paradox. In doing so, you prove that Tokiko is right, that the world the characters live in is a simulation, and everything they were fighting for is wrong. Everything they experienced is a lie, and your punishment for losing? Everything the heroes could ever want. See, in the good ending, they didn't make it there without a few losses. In this ending, however, Ryuki already knows who the killer is and is sent back so he can solve the case before it really begins. This allows Ryuki to prevent the tragedies that happen over the course of the game, but it leaves the victory feeling empty, hollow. It's the perfect ending, but the characters didn't earn it. This left me feeling hollow, empty, and everything built to this one pivotal moment. The power this moment held over me, along with everything else in this game, from the humor to the plot to the mystery, makes Nirvana Initiative my favorite game of 2022. Without you, I am only half. I need to be home. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe and follow me over at twitch.tv/KhepriProd, where I stream daily. I've got big plans for 2023, what with Tears of the Kingdom and Raincoat coming out, so stay tuned as Spike Chunsoft fucks with my brain once again.